right, we're on the record. Good. Council agenda, Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Township Council agenda meeting of December 4th, 2018.
Posting of notice. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Law by filing the notice in the Office of Township Clerk and by posting the meeting notice on the bulletin board at the municipal building and on the municipal website on December 20th, 2017, where it has remained posted since that date. A legal notice appeared in the Daily Record and the North Star Ledger on December 27th, 2017, and was forwarded by fax to other local newspapers on December 20th, 2017. Council meetings are videotaped and aired on Public Access Channel 21 at 7 p.m. Sundays and Wednesdays, and they are also available for viewing at www.parsippany.net.
Please rise for the flag salute. Mrs. Grignani, if you would.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Here.
Ms. Grignani,
present.
Ms. McCarthy,
Here.
Ms. Peterson,
Here.
Mr. Carriffy.
Here.
Also in attendance are Business Administrator Keith Kasmark, Township Attorney Jim Lott, Township Clerk Colette Madden, Council President. You have a quorum. Well, you may begin.
Thank you. Upcoming meetings, December 18th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. regular meeting, and January 8th, 2019 at 6:30 p.m. reorganization meeting, followed by our agenda meeting. Approval of minutes, agenda meeting November 8th, 2018, regular meeting November 20th, 2018. Presentations, reports. Okay, at this time we'll have a presentation by the Highlands Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you mind if I actually have one?
You can
You can take
remove
that
it.
off.
Take that off.
Yeah, but you know what? How's that?
Good.
Okay,
Is that
thank you. First of all, thank you very much for allowing us to briefly present to you this evening. As you may know, my name is Lisa Pleddon, and I've been a resident of Parsippany for over 23 years. I first started my life in Parsippany as a renter, and then fell in love with the town and really appreciated the quality of life that we have here. So I bought my first house about 14 years ago in the Lake Hiawatha section. And also, I serve on the Parsippany Environmental Advisory Committee. But tonight, I'm here wearing a different hat as the new Executive Director of the New Jersey Highlands Council. I'm here with my colleagues, James Humphreys, Director of Science and Planning, and Mary Jude Haddock-Weiler, a Planning Manager. So I'm here tonight to talk about the Highlands Council, the Regional Master Plan, and why we think it's important for Parsippany to work with us again and align its planning with the rest of the Highlands region. First, a little bit of context, and Mary Jude is, I think, working on some slides. Thank you. Well, I think they call it PowerPoint, right? So just a little bit of context for those that might not be familiar with the Highlands Act. It was passed in 2004, and the intent of the act was to protect water resources, which supplies drinking water to 70% of New Jersey's population. It's important to point out that the goals of the act were not just to protect water resources, but also to preserve our region's natural resources, agriculture, scenic resources, historic resources, and to encourage appropriate economic development and growth. The legislation, the Highlands Act of 2004, established the boundaries of the Highlands region, and within it, the boundaries of the preservation area and the planning area. It also directed the development of a regional master plan, a program to help municipalities conform with that plan, and a grant program to support conforming activities. Finally, the Highlands Act created us, the Highlands Council, that same year as the regional planning agency that's responsible for helping to implement all of what I just discussed. The Highlands region itself consists of 860,000 acres, encompassing 88 municipalities and parts of 7 counties. The Highlands Council is currently working with 61 of those 88 municipalities. So you can see over the last 14 years, we've made tremendous headway in working with towns within the Highlands region. And Mary Jude has a map up which shows that the preservation area is the green area there, and the tan is the planning area. And obviously, as you can imagine, development is more strictly regulated in the preservation area and less strictly regulated in the planning area. In fact, conforming with the regional master plan is voluntary in the planning area. And of most importance to you tonight, Parsippany is 100% in the planning area. So as the largest community by population size in the Highlands region, working with Parsippany to enact the goals of the Highlands Act is especially important to conforming with the regional master plan and to the work that we do as the Highlands Council, as a regional planning agency. A regional master plan is only as effective as the parts of the region that actually work together to align with it. And so that's basically why we're here tonight. You may recall that Parsippany had submitted a petition to the Highlands Council, I think it was about 8 years ago, to conform with the regional master plan, and then held off going any further in the process. So we're here tonight to talk about the benefits of working with the Highlands Council and with Parsippany moving forward in this process. As you might be aware, there's new leadership at the Highlands Council. We have a new chairperson, Carl Richko, and I was brought on as the new executive director about 4 months ago. So we've sort of hit the refresh button, we like to say, and we're out talking with municipalities about the benefits of working with the council. And I like to say that we say something that isn't said too often, which, from a government agency, is that we've actually learned how to be more effective and more flexible and how to react to the needs of our constituent municipalities. So we've really evolved as a government agency over the last 13 or 14 years to be more flexible in the work that we do with municipalities. We have recognized that no two towns are the same, and we've tailored our approach accordingly. We started out with sort of a rigid one-size-fits-all checklist for municipalities. We've moved away from that and really worked to sit down with township officials to learn about what your individual needs and concerns are in your township. And there are many, many benefits to working with the Highlands Council and with your neighboring communities to align with the regional master plan. And one of the most significant is that we offer many grants for activities that Parsippany might want to pursue anyway and is planning on pursuing. And I think all of the council should have a list. It's a 3-page list of the grants that we offer, and it's actually only a partial list. So one example of an activity that we can help a municipality fund, which Parsippany is undergoing as we speak, is updating its local master plan. There are many other planning grants that we can provide for municipalities we work with that touch on issues that I know are of concern here in town. And they include planning grants for stormwater management, for water use and conservation, for historic preservation, for economic development, for green building and sustainability, lake management, habitat conservation, scenic resource management, and open space. And that's just a partial list. Last week, I joined many of you in attending the public workshop on the update to our regional master plan. And I was very impressed by that, by the way. And I think we all know that this plan is going to have a huge impact on the future of our community. workshop, myself, along with many of you, heard many people talk about the importance of open space to Parsippany, of protecting our drinking water, of supporting historic preservation, and the importance of planning smartly and appropriately for our future. So from my perspective, from the council's perspective, our timing is perfect tonight as Parsippany begins the process of updating its master plan to talk to you about the benefits of aligning with the Highlands Regional Master Plan and to ask you to please consider doing so. And now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Mary Ju to briefly wrap up.
Could you just hold the mic a little closer to your mouth?
No.
Turn it off.
Where's Colette?
There you go.
Does it work?
So, as Lisa just mentioned, the township is currently undertaking your master plan process. And the regional master plan and the Highlands Council.
I don't think it's on yet.
I don't think it's on.
Colette is
I don't
gonna
think
be-
it's on.
Hello?
Thank you. Okay, I'll start again. So as Lisa just mentioned, of course, the township is undertaking your master plan process right now. And the last slide that we showed laid out the major components of the regional master plan for the Highlands Council. And we believe that as you engage in your master planning process, you will discover that there is already a lot of alignment between what the Highlands Regional Master Plan envisions and what the township is proposing for your future. I have listed here just a number of the areas where I think we have shared goals. The stormwater management is an idea that, I mean, everybody in New Jersey cares about, something that has gotten a lot more attention recently. Water conservation, other kinds of resource protections, sustainable economic health, historic preservation, walking paths and trails. That this is just a sampling of, I think, where we will find as you do your master planning that it is very close to what we envision in the Highlands Regional Master Plan, that the alignment is already there and there's potential for even more. So what I wanted to do is just give you a sample of a couple of the planning programs that we have funding for at the Highlands. This first one, again, based on what I think is of importance to the township, is the Highlands Stormwater Management Program. And this program is devised to basically meet the requirements of your MS4 permitting program, which you have to do regardless. And so the Highlands Council came up with a program to assist Highlands municipalities to meet these obligations. So the program basically involves mapping of your stormwater outfalls and providing an assessment of their conditions. Also an updated, an amendment to your stormwater control ordinance as per DEP standards. And then a review and update of your stormwater mitigation plan, which is where a development project can't meet the stormwater requirements on site, then you identify different places in town where you would have them go and either contribute to or conduct some mitigation strategies. So all of these things would be part of our program, are covered under a grant that we provide. And then even after this is all completed, we continue to offer stormwater management technical assistance. I think I'm going to just juggle. So the other program that I wanted to discuss a little bit is our Water Use and Conservation Management Plan program. Now, this is a very robust and very comprehensive program. What I tried to do here with this slide is to break it down into its basic components because it gets very complicated. But basically, what we would be looking at is helping, and we have a consultant on board who actually has a lot of experience doing this, is identifying your water sources and your water uses. And basically that's supply and demand. The water sources are where you get your water from, what's available to you in the groundwater, and then your users, what you need to spend in water in order to support your community. And that includes demands from a build-out. Highlands Council would also pay for an update to a build-out analysis for the township. In addition to that, we would verify and update your net water availability, and that's basically a calculation that measures what is available versus what's being used in each of your sub-watersheds. So it's a calculation. It doesn't mean you do or don't have water. It's a calculation that sort of gives you a measure to know whether or not you're getting close to stressing the system. And then finally, we would help develop reduction strategies to help. Basically, it's ways that you can conserve water. Okay. So should the township decide that they're interested in, moving forward with a plan conformance, there's a whole range of benefits. Obviously, Lisa mentioned a laundry list of grant programs that we can provide. We also provide continuing expertise from the staff level whenever, requested, basically. It's not that we're inserting ourselves, but if you need expertise or you are looking for somebody to help collaborate, the Highlands Council staff is available to do that as well. This again is just a listing, some of which I just mentioned: the Water Use and Conservation Management Plan, Stormwater Management Planning. Other things that we think would be relevant for the township are stream and lake protections, sustainable economic development planning, whether it's for the entire municipality or for different subsections of the town, and different types of uses that you may be interested in encouraging. Also redevelopment planning, heritage planning, which we think is really important, and some general master planning. It's important to note that these are things that I think are important in the township, but if you were to decide that you wanted to work with us, we think this is a municipally led effort. We would support the priorities that the township tells us are theirs. And of course, that is something that you're going to develop as you go through your master planning process. Okay, so this is just a simple graphic of what the process would look like. If you choose to adopt a resolution to petition the Highlands Council for conformance, that would then come to the staff. We would work with you to develop a whole package of materials that would go before our Highlands Council. And basically that package would involve, besides your resolution, a series of draft documents. Things like a Highlands element that would talk about how Highlands is relevant to Parsippany-Troy Hills. An environmental resource inventory that would just lay out what your resources look like. Potentially some updates to land use ordinance if we find that that's going to be something that's necessary. So all of that would go in a package before it would be heard before the Highlands Council. As that's all ready, we would post the petition on our Highlands Council website for public comment, and then the petition would be heard at a regularly scheduled Highlands Council meeting. Public hearing would be held at that time, and the council would then approve your petition. At that point, we get into the implementation phase. And that's really where all of these grants come in, where we would lay out an implementation plan and schedule in collaboration with the township based on what your needs and your priorities are, and would allot money to accomplish each of these various planning steps. And it's not a one-year effort. The initial dollars would be expected to be expended in maybe 12 to 18 months. But as time goes on, and we've done this with the municipalities that Lisa mentioned that we're already working with, it continually gets updated based on your priorities and based on your accomplishments. And what we have found is that when municipalities will do, say, now you're not going to do it at this point because you're doing master planning, but some towns will do a re-examination report, and they will discover as they're doing that there are issues that they didn't realize were coming to the forefront. And so then they will simply contact the Highlands Council and request funding for a particular project. We require a scope of work. We review that scope of work, approve it, and then the work goes on. Our grants are reimbursable, so basically you are awarded the grant, but you must deliver something, of course, before we spend the money. But it's all very very orderly. We have all of the funds come out of Treasury, and they are then dispersed to the town after we receive deliverables. So ultimately, though, that's the grants. As far as implementing some of the things that you're going to want to put in place in Parsippany-Troy Hills, it's going to be the township implementing your regular rules and regulations, not the Highlands Council. We're just helping you develop them. And in fact, I think it's important to point out that many aspects of the town will not really be impacted by the Highlands. There are 15 exemptions that exist for the planning area. So what that means is all of the things that are laid out in those exemptions are not subject to our regional master plan or anything that you would adopt to conform to that. And one of the biggest ones that most people are concerned about are single-family homes. The exemption is very clear. Any single-family home that exists when you decide to conform is completely grandfathered. It stays a single-family home, and as long as it complies with local regulations, there's no restrictions whatsoever. There's also exemptions for the construction of new single-family homes. So that's pretty clear, and I just don't want anyone to be confused, people getting concerned that there's going to be another level of regulation. That will never happen with the single-family homes. There's also an exemption for small redevelopments that allow for up to 25% increase in the redevelopment area, specifically for impervious surfaces. That's an exemption that exists, so that those kinds of property owners, those businesses, would also not be impacted. What this really does is it provides the township with additional resources to undertake your comprehensive planning and to move forward with the broader goals that you envision, especially as you undertake your master planning. So that's it, sort of in a nutshell. I hope I haven't confused you too greatly, but if I have another slide. That's question. There we go.
Any council members have any questions?
Yeah, just one. Keeps coming up by some of our members from the public. Can you help us at all with any of our COA obligation? I know the answer, but I want it to be vocalized.
Okay. So I will answer, but let me just explain. Obviously, things have changed some in affordable housing from what they were several years ago. When the growth share formula was thrown out by the courts, it changed the way new development affects your obligation. So it's not based on whether or not you choose to grow. Your obligation is based on a need. So what has happened for some of our municipalities to this point who have been conforming with the regional master plan is when they go to court, they can use our build-out analysis to help them with their vacant land adjustment or their durational adjustment.
I'm sorry, what analysis was that you just
Their
made?
vacant land analysis. So basically, some lands may not be developable because of resource constraints, and the judges have held, in the opinions that we've seen, that the fair share compliances that we have heard of thus far, that there needs to be some attention paid to Highlands as far as environmental constraints. We don't have anything to do with actual numbers. The numbers are still going to be developed by the courts. Yeah. You have anything to add? Okay. So that's the answer.
Could you say that again? I didn't hear you.
Maybe.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any more questions?
There's a question.
Well, no, we're not gonna, yeah, that's gonna be in the open public.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Council President,
Yes.
if we can ask them to just stick around for the public hearing in the event that we have questions that they may be able to answer. That's okay?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
We
I
should be there shortly.
can I want to make a motion.
Don't break it again like Lisa. Okay.
Maybe I should make her do it.
Excuse me, I would like to make a motion. I want to thank you very much for the informative presentation. And based on the presentation and the previous discussions the administration and council has had with the council, I'd like to make a motion tonight, place a resolution on the next agenda for the township to join the Highlands Council.
I'll second that.
Okay, so at this point, we have a motion to petition the Highlands Council for conformance. The motion was made by Ms. McCarthy and seconded by Ms. Peterson. And I'm going to do a roll call at this point. Mr. DePiero?
We had some problems when we had to fix a pumping station, a high-pressure pumping station many years ago. And it would have taken us, when we were partially a member, and it would have taken us a year and a half to get all the approvals from the Highlands Council. And when we opted out, we accomplished our goals in 6 months. So there are some time constraints in there sometimes that can hinder us, and I'm not sure I want to move in that direction yet. So I vote no.
Can we?
Okay, so I just want to, I apologize very quickly. I just want to clarify what this motion is for. The motion that was made by Ms. McCarthy has to do with placing a resolution to petition the Highlands for conformance. The motion is not at this point to join or petition the Highlands conformance currently. So it's just to place a resolution to be voted on for the next meeting. So I just wanted to clarify that. I apologize, Mr. DePiero.
I understand that, but this is the first step towards joining. Thank you. I vote no.
Ms. Grignani?
I'm sort of taken back. I thought this was going to be a presentation. I didn't know Ms. McCarthy was going to make a motion. I'm going to vote no. I need more information. This is the first that I'm hearing about the Highlands. I know several of our residents have come before us asking for a presentation, and I thank you for coming, but I'm going to be voting no.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
I'm voting yes because by putting it on the agenda, it's keeping it in front of the public and in front of us for developing more information so that we can formulate something to vote on. So, yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
I'm going to agree with Mrs. Peterson. I want to just keep this moving. Like you had stated, this is just to have a
Wait, I just want to, just to place a resolution on the agenda. This motion is not for joining the council at this time.
Correct.
The resolution for the next meeting will be for that.
Right, so, and any other questions that we have in the meantime for Mr. Lott, while this is going on, we can inquire with
You can
him, correct,
inquire,
Mr. Lott?
yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
And you can inquire at the next meeting as well prior to voting
So,
as well.
yeah, I don't have a problem with that, so I'll vote yes.
Okay, so the motion passes 3 votes to 2. Based on that, we will place a resolution for the next meeting to for petitioning the council, the Highlands Council for conformance. Thank you.
Can you, in response to Mr. DiPiero's statement about the storage or the
Pumping station.
pumping station?
High-pressure pumping station.
Can you address that
up
at
in
all?
Powder Mill.
I'm sorry.
Just in response to the statement that Mr. DiPiero made.
I'll start and if James wants to add. So I remember that that incident, and there was a lot of information that was sent around. The issue, of course, was that there was a problem with the pump station, and the township wanted to connect in one area versus another. And as a conforming municipality, which the township wasn't at that point, but if they were pursuing that, then the Highlands Council would have prepared your wastewater management plan. And the alternative was for the county to prepare your wastewater management plan, which is the route that you took. I believe there was actually some misinformation about the amount of time it would have taken for the council to prepare it, because it was the same wastewater management plan. It was just a matter of, obviously you would have had to finish, the plan conformance process to get to the point where it was done. And we had actually put together a flow chart to show you how that would happen. I actually devised it myself. So I don't believe the amount of time that was suggested that it would take is accurate. We were completely open for the township to do it however they chose, and said that we would be more than happy to come back at a later point and reconsider a petition for plan conformance. But I don't believe it's true that it would have taken a year and a half for Highlands Council to do it versus having the county do it.
So had we been a member of the Highlands,
Right, then.
you're saying then it would have taken about the same time?
Yes,
But because we weren't a member, we were in the process, that's what
right.
could have been the cause for the
And so
extended
that
time.
might have taken an additional month or two, but it certainly wouldn't have taken an exorbitant amount of time, because you were already through to the process of ready to go to the council for a vote.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. Library presentation?
Oh, he needs to, I was at the end, working
You know what, while you're setting up, we'll go to the township attorney, Mr. Lott.
I have no report, Mr. President.
Okay. Mr. Casmore?
Thank you, Council President. Just to bring the council up to date, Ann Cucci and I held our first formal budget meeting after the budget hearings that we held in October and November with our various department heads today. We're making progress and working through a budget calendar that within the next week or so we'll be sharing with the council for early 2018. The state DCA has announced that they have extended the budget deadlines, which I previously shared with the council, for 2019. So we'll be formalizing the calendar and circulating it to you. Subsequently, I've also been holding one-on-one meetings with individual department heads. They started yesterday and will continue through next Friday. We're reviewing an array of matters, not only budgetarily, but also personnel issues, projects that the various departments are undertaking. So it's a good get to know you. We're familiarizing ourselves with one another to forge a good working relationship. And lastly, I believe that the municipal clerk circulated to the council a draft of the employee handbook, which we are working towards trying to complete by the end of the calendar year. There could possibly be an ask that the council consider adopting it by resolution at the December 18th council meeting so that it can be implemented for January 1st, 2019. I met with all 4 representatives from the various collective bargaining agreement unions today. There was no pressing matters that they shared. PBA is going to run it past their attorney, get back to me for Monday, but I'm hoping that we can wrap that up before the end of the calendar year. That's all I have, Council President.
Thank you.
It would be easier if the changes to the handbook would be highlighted so that we don't have to go through the old handbook and the new handbook to see what has changed.
Through you, Council President, Councilman DePero, I know you and I spoke before the meeting. You haven't had an opportunity to see it. It is all redlined.
It's redlined?
So,
Okay.
yeah, so you'll be able to see notes in the columns, and you'll be able to see the areas that were stricken from the original version and any
Okay,
additional
that was
verbiage
emailed
that
to
was
us,
added.
we didn't get a hard copy.
Yeah. If you'd like a hard copy, I can provide.
That's all right, I can look at it on the internet.
And if there's any questions amongst the council in the interim period, please feel free to reach out to my office. Be glad to try to field any questions you have between now and the next council meeting.
Thank you. Okay, township offices, committees, any reports, council members?
Not at this time.
Okay. Jane, just let me know when you're set, and then we'll stop for you guys. Okay, engineering report. Lake Parsippany Road Improvements Phase 6 project. Construction of the 6th phase of the Lake Parsippany Road Improvement Project remains in progress. Issues with the water main installation and bacterial testing have delayed the project. Work will continue as long as the weather is favorable. No council action required. Old Bloomfield Ave Phase 1 project. The first phase of the Old Bloomfield Avenue project is nearing completion. The roadway is scheduled to be paved and striped the first week of December, weather permitting. No council action required. Moraine Area Streets Phase 2 project. The second phase of this project is approximately 90% complete. It is anticipated that the project will be substantially complete, including paving by the end of the year. No council action required.
Thank
Mount Tabor Area Streets Phase 3 Improvement Project. Construction of this project is approximately 35% complete. Will continue through the end of the construction season. No council action is required. Drainage issues. Engineering and the Public Works Department are still investigating numerous drainage issues. The Cherry Lane issues are still being evaluated, but the wet weather has delayed some of our ability to get equipment on site to investigate more thoroughly. Crews have been on site inspecting drainage lines and will continue to investigate until the source of the problem is identified. Several other drainage concerns in town have also been addressed. No council action is required. You ready? Okay, now we'll have a presentation by our library.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes. All right. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank you for taking this time to listen to the library's presentation. As I told Council President Karifi, I'll try to make it short and entertaining, all right? Before I start, though, I would like to acknowledge that my library board is here in the audience. I believe you know everyone here, but I'll just say their names so we can test my memory. We have Board President Joseph Weisberg, we have Rosemary Marola, we have Board Vice President Roberta Chopko, we have Member-at-Large Jerry Moses, Herb Levine, we have Board Treasurer Fred Preston, Mayor's Alternate Alana Shearer, and the back row here, we have our volunteer group, the Friends of the Library. Chris Lipperini, our president, Cindy Cizak, our advocacy chair, and Lorraine Vitale, one of our very active members. And the person clapping happens to be one of my staff members, Jean Embler, who is our program planner. So tonight I'm here to talk to you about the Lake Hiawatha Library. As you all know, the Lake Hiawatha Library is very close to the downtown area in Lake Hiawatha, and it's a very busy branch. Last year, according to our statistics, we have 102,000 people come through our doors, which is very good for a branch library and probably rivals some of the standalone libraries in Morris County. The library was renovated in 1994, and that was 24 years ago. Shocking. So in 1994, the cost of renovation was $300,000. This was money that was in a capital improvement fund that the library had put together. When you think about it, though, the building is 9,000 square feet. So to renovate that size building for $300,000 was really difficult to do. And also, when you think about what $300,000 can buy, we had many changes in that building, but we weren't, the quality of the workmanship wasn't what it would be with a more expensive project. So libraries have changed quite a bit since 1994. And I'll just let you read that cartoon. So we are no longer Charlie Brown's library, and we're certainly not what we like to say as we're not your grandma's public library anymore. What we find that we are has been captured by Eric Kleinberg, who's an author who wrote Palaces for the People. And he sees libraries as part of the social infrastructure of towns and communities. And this quote from his book really captures what our board believes is our mission and vision statement. And that is that everyone deserves free open access to the public library and a place where they can gather together as a community. I'm just going to give you a little virtual tour of our Lake Hiawatha branch. I know many of you have been in the library. But we have a small meeting room area, and it's always filled up with many children's activities. This is actually not a picture of sword fighting in the library. They're learning about balloons and balloon making. The children's librarians do some very creative workshops and classes in the library. In fact, Just recently, they started a sewing class for kids 3rd grade and up, boys and girls. There's actually a waiting list for this class. So I was told about a little girl named Jordan who was so happy that she learned to thread a needle and was able to repair the hole in her jacket as part of our program. Also, the children's library is heavily used. On the left, you'll see what looks like kids playing with Legos. They're actually doing some science experiments with Legos as part of our New Jersey Maker Day. New Jersey Maker Day is done throughout New Jersey libraries in March. On the right-hand side, you'll see our early literacy classes are being conducted at the library. In Lake Hiawatha, we have a unique population. We have some people who are new to the community, and they think of our library as a neighborhood library. And as a result, they treat our librarians, our children's librarians, as if they're their next-door neighbors. So they often ask questions like, how do I sign my child up for soccer? What should I do if my child isn't doing well in school? Where can I go for tutoring? How do I talk to the teacher? Are these PTA meetings really all that important? This is a quote from one of the surveys that we did, where someone said that the children's librarians explained how to register for programs and tell me what's going on in town, something that a lot of us take for granted. This slide, I know it's a little dark, and really there are windows in the library, but the idea was to show the congestion in our adult area. And what we have here is furniture from 1994, and as a result, the furniture is not equipped for the latest technology. The computers are used all the time, and we need other spaces where people can just relax and read in the library and use their own laptops. There is no designated teen area, so teens come to the library to volunteer, and they also do studying there. So often they end up in the children's section, and that's what you see here. So the board decided that they would hold focus groups because we wanted to make sure that we were on target with what we thought the community needed. So we had a library consultant volunteer his time to do the focus groups and do a summary report. The focus groups included teens, parents, senior citizens, and then the adult community. Those were the groups that we focused on. And this is from the consultant's report. The Lake Hiawatha residents, no surprise, feel that the library should play a part in the community. And then these are the areas that they felt needed to be expanded. In terms of public spaces, they're looking for a place where families can work together in the library. Community meeting rooms, tutoring and study areas, technology training, and importantly, teen spaces. So, the thing that the focus groups didn't talk about, that we as library board and staff and the township workers know about, are a lot of the building problems, the building infrastructure at the Lake Hiawatha branch. So this is one of the things that's occurred a few times, but this latest time was very severe. We had a possum who really wanted to get into the library to read all those books, you know? So he did a lot of roof damage, and the cost to fix this was over $700. Then we have heating and cooling issues. The far left slide is the underground oil tank at the library. This has to be removed at some point. Once it's removed, you see on the far right, we have a furnace that needs to be converted to gas heat. The gas line is there. These Mitsubishi units in the middle slide handle the cooling and the heating, and Joe Janarone, who you all know, tells me that only 2 of those 4 units work on a consistent basis. Then we have some other structural issues. This is, there's a lot of them, but this one is near the point of egress. If there were a fire and you'd have to come out from the lower level outside, the sidewalks and the brick face. It looks like it's a minor problem, but this keeps occurring. We fixed it several times. Then there's other structural issues. On the left, you see the ramp for people who have a handicap. If you're in a wheelchair, this was up to code when in 1994. It's no longer up to code, and it's really difficult to get into the library. You have to just ring the doorbell and someone comes and lets you in. It's not a handicapped accessible entrance. The middle slide shows near the front entrance of the library, we've replaced this tile many times, but just deliveries and voting booths and that sort of thing have caused this problem to happen over and over again. And then the far slide, it's another one of these problems where it's the concrete and masonry work. But there's good news, and I'm here to tell you about it tonight. We have, as you know, in New Jersey, in November 2017, the voters, by 60% of the vote, approved bond grant funds for $125 million for improvements or building of new libraries. In Parsippany, it was approved in each of our voting districts. And the guidelines to the grant will be released soon in the spring. But what the grant requires is this. It requires a one-to-one match for any building or building improvements. Those of you who remember back in 2004, we came to council and asked for money for the Halsey Road Library, our main library. When we asked for those funds, it was a 3-to-1 match. The town had to come up with 3/4 of the budget for the project, and the state matched it with 1/4. This program is terrific because it's 1-to-1, but it's a competitive grant process, as was the other one. Whoops. Oh. Okay. My ask. I lost my ask, excuse me. All right, so what we are asking, we're asking for your approval to apply for the competitive bond grant funds we need. This would require approval from council by resolution for a 1-to-1 match. We can't even apply for the grant if we don't get that. We need allocation of funds for an architect. Currently, there's $1 million in a 2015 bond, money that was bonded back in 2015. The whole idea was to renovate. We're talking about building a new library branch. That's what we're looking for. And the estimated amount in matching funds, and I have estimated in bold because we don't know until we get the architect to do the needs assessment, the building program, the exact cost. That will be part of his charge. He would have to come up with a budget. So, but we're estimating that it's 2.5 to 3 million. So if you decide to award money for this project, besides the fact that we will be eternally grateful to all of you, I know that doesn't give you a lot of hope. The more important things are that you'll show that you're valuing the educational, social, and recreational needs of our community. You'll be endorsing economic development because when the State Library first put out this whole idea for a grant and the New Jersey Library Association, there was proof that the grant monies would end up, the result of them would be hiring people in the trades so that more jobs would be created. And then also those people who worked on the project would be visiting our town, going to our restaurants, shopping nearby. You would show that you believe in the critical importance of social infrastructure and the library's connection with that, and you would help to build a facility that meets our community's needs. So thank you for listening to me. And do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple.
Okay.
You plan to build on the same location that the library exists now?
What we were talking about, and it's just preliminary because we have to get through the funding aspect, we were talking about building across the street in that municipal lot, and then using then that way the existing library could remain open, and once the building was finished, that building could be torn down and used for parking.
Okay, so in the meantime, you would have no parking at all?
We'd
While
have
you're-
on-street
While you're
parking.
building one,
Right,
on-street parking is all you would have?
right, right. And I believe there is the other municipal lot on North Beverwick, but it would be a walk.
I wonder
For someone.
if we could address that in the, perhaps with the bus, the Parsippany bus, like we do for moving people from the high school parking lot for the street fair, maybe on high usage days, your Sundays are your biggest day, maybe on Sundays we provide a shuttle service from a parking lot nearby for people between given hours or something like that.
Sure, sure.
Jane, what's the time frame what's the expectation?
Okay, these guidelines are going to be released in the spring. And right now, there are many libraries in other communities whose councils have either approved this request or rejected it. So they're ready to go. The sooner the better, because we need an architect to do all this work. And if the grant guidelines are released in April, for example, that's really only 4 months to get the job done.
Do you have an architect already planned?
We do. The Buildings and Grounds Committee, Roberta Chapko is chair. We've met and we've selected an architect. We had 2 quotes. And this architect is only charged with preparing documents for the grant proposal at this point. So we have an architect in mind, yes.
And the $1 million that you feel he will be charging you? Do you have-
He won't charge, no, it's not an entire $1 million. We just want to use that money
Okay.
towards that. It would be whatever he charges for his various services. It would be more like $12,000 to $15,000.
Okay. And the 2.5 to 3 mil would be our, meaning the township's obligation?
Right, if it does come in that high. I mean, it could come in at 4 million total, so then it would be 2 million if we get the grant too. So, but that is part of the grant requirement. The council has to pass the resolution or we're not allowed to apply for the grant. We're not permitted to apply.
And going back to the architect, you have the funds for the architect, or are you asking the township to assist you with that also?
I'm asking the township to assist by authorizing that bond, the bond from 2015, that we could use that money for that purpose.
All right. Okay, thank you, Jane.
Okay,
Just one more question.
sure.
If we grant this, we do our resolution, and you don't get the grant, then what? You're asking us for the whole amount?
Not necessarily. I do want to think positively that we'll get the grant. I think if we do not get the grant, it means we all go back to the drawing board.
Okay, all right. Then it'd be, we
Maybe the
don't-
board wants,
Unless we want to do a quick resolution to vote on at our next meeting. It's only a resolution, it's not an ordinance. Can one be prepared that quickly? I would move that we do that.
Sure. Yeah.
Do we need a motion?
You would make a motion to place a resolution at the next meeting to support this, as Jane was saying, so yes.
I'll make the motion, yes.
Okay, so motion made by Mr. DePiero,
Second.
second by Mr. Carriffy. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes, for the reasons that I want my name attached to those 4 bullet points.
And Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll place a resolution on the next agenda.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Bids taken, November 15th, 2018, transportation and disposal of sewage sludge cake. November 20th, 2018, invitation for bids from New Jersey Board of Public Utilities, licensed electric power suppliers for electric generation services. To be taken, none, quotations, proposals, qualifications. This time I'll entertain a motion to open up the public hearing.
Motion?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Floor is open to the public.
Okay, if you do come up, please sign in, state your name and address. You'll be given 5 minutes.
Ken Dolsky, Winfield Drive. 2 things. One, I would like to ask the Highlands Council people to talk a little bit more about the relationship of conformance to new buildings. And particularly, I'd like them to address what benefits the township would have if we conformed in terms of protection against builders' remedy lawsuits. And second, just be more specific about how limitations in water supply and sewage capacity would affect new buildings, new developments, and maybe in particular residential developments. My other question for the council is, I noticed that on the consent agenda, item number 3 is a resolution for a settlement with RD Realty. And we'd just like to have an explanation of what is involved in that at some point. So those are the 2 things that I wanted to ask.
Thank you.
So the first question was about builders' remedy lawsuits. The township will be protected through, you're going through the process you're going through now with the courts. That's where the protection will come. What the council can provide is technical assistance and grants to inform what the town's going through. So when you go through, when you look at your obligation, as Mary Jude said earlier, one of the things you can do is what's called a vacant land adjustment. Vacant land adjustments are based on the environmental restrictions in place at the town. So when you conform with the regional master plan, you can use the Highlands environmental restrictions to inform what is developable in the town. And then therefore, when you went to court, you could present that as information to reduce your obligation or potentially delay your obligation through a durational adjustment based on water and sewer infrastructure limitations. So the Highlands Council is not going to come in and provide a number for you. We can't do that anymore because you have to go to the court. What we can provide you is technical assistance and information to inform the court of the restrictions the RMP provides for you.
Can that be, sir, is that available to us even though we are in court at the present time?
You could apply for a grant, and we could provide you with up to $25,000 to assist you in preparing your fair share plan and assist you in calculating the build out for the town, which then you could use at the court. Timing is obviously paramount there, and you'd want to consider what the status of that court hearing is before you did anything, but certainly we could provide you with that assistance.
Thank you.
And the second one was about water and sewer limitations. So the one interesting thing, and I was going to jump up early when Mary Jude was talking about it, is the Highlands for water allocation permit issues, irrespective of conformance, the water allocation permit issuance has to be consistent with the regional master plan. So conformance changes nothing about water allocation. If you are or not conforming, we still have to be part of the review process at the DEP. As far as wastewater management plan process goes, you're done. You've gone through that process. You have a 10-year approval. we're not going to step in and interrupt that approval. So that's in place. Conformance is not going to change anything at this process. Again, if you require an amendment to that sewer service area in the future, irrespective of conformance, the Highlands Council comments on those applications. So conformance isn't really going to change that much in those two issues.
Okay, thank you.
There was a question about RD.
That question, I will reach out to Ken during the duration between this meeting and the next meeting to provide him with that information.
Thank you.
Nicholas Homiak, Lake Hiawatha. I can't believe that Councilwoman Gagliani is from Parsippany, lives in the Highlands, and knows nothing. Parsippany's been involved in a roundabout way since 2009. And